Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another episode of In the Frame. Today's episode is about Lenny Abrahamson, the Irish director born in 1966, who's made 6 films. For me, he's made one great film, but again, that's just because it's right up my alley. But all of his films are interesting, and because of all the releases of them that I have commentaries, he's a really interesting director to listen to as far as his choices and his views on film itself. He says himself he's not really that interested in drama or melodrama. He's not really that bothered about narrative drive. And there's kind of examples of this which I'll talk about, which perhaps in the hands of other directors there would be different choices made. So I'm just going to go through the films. I have done some random reviews on a couple of them. My thoughts on the films and his choices. Again, please leave comments below if you're familiar with Abrahamson's work. What's your favourite one? Because I'm always interested in reading your comments. So his films span from 2004 to 2018. He's also done television work. Most recently a series called Normal People. So the first one from 2004 is Adam and Paul, which has been kind of called Laurel and Hardy on Smack. Even some of the reviews on the DVD says it's side splitting, and it's like not for me. It's a grim film. It's kind of like Trainspotting, but without the stylistic flourishes, without the soundtrack, without the cool aspect of Trainspotting. I'm not a fan of Trainspotting. Adam and Paul is much more realistic, grim, unrelentingly grim, as it really shows the price that's paid for drug addiction, the effects on family members, surrounding friends. To me, it's not, yes, there's some black humour, but to call it side splitting I think is a little bit misleading, again depending obviously on your subjective view of comedy. So this is a good film. It's not a film that I would revisit very often. The last images of the film are amongst the bleakest images you would ever like to see. It's also about friendship, but again the ending of the film is fairly devastating in that regard as well. It was written by Mark O'Halloran, who co-stars in the film as well. Again, this one has a commentary with the director and writer, which is very interesting to check out. So next, he did Garage, which I have done a random review on. I'll leave a link to the random review in the description. Again, this one was written by Mark O'Halloran, and there is a commentary with the writer and the director. In my random review of this one, I kind of cheekily called it Bresson Light, because again, the reason that I like Abrahamson is he shoots things kind of in an expressionistic way. Again, he's not particularly narrative driven. He shoots things in a really beautifully simple way, involving space between characters, involving characters and landscape. Again, this is a simple story of a guy called Josie who works at a garage, who is a little slow. He's kind of a joke around town, and his relationship with people in the town that take a turn when he gets an apprentice to work at the garage. Again, there is a simplicity. You know, the town, some of the people in the town laugh at him, but Abrahamson's not laughing at him. We're not laughing at him. Again, the ending is quietly devastating. And like I said, it's lazy analysis, but there's definitely a kind of Bressonian feel, especially he has a kind of not a relationship with a horse, but a kind of, he feels he has a mutual kind of respect with a horse, but as things spiral out of control, even the horse turns its back on him, which is quite devastating in its own way. Again, just the use of space, again, just a deceptively simple, spare style to the film. But again, it's not a film that I would watch that often, but it's still very good. So next, we move on to What Richard Did, which again is kind of almost like we need to talk about Kevin. You know, again, this has a commentary by Abrahamson, which is wonderful. And Abrahamson talks about the title of the film, because it's pretty much in your face. Richard is going to do something. So the opening is we meet Richard, who's a young rugby player who has lots of friends who, you know, idolise him. All the girls like him. He falls for this particular girl who kind of has a boyfriend, and she leaves him, but there's still kind of tension between the two. We see their kind of lifestyle, going to parties, consumption of alcohol, and obviously all the time in your mind it's like, what's Richard going to do? It's going to probably be one of two things, and they're both going to be bad probably. That thing happens. I'm not going to go into spoilers, but that thing happens. It's how his family react, specifically his father, who you think is going to do the right thing. The whole community kind of shuts down. How Richard deals with it as far as his future. Again, it's shot in a very expressionistic way. There's no real narrative drive. I mean, there's a scene where Richard goes to the police station just to make a witness statement, as the other kids have done, but that's really the only time we really see the police. In fact, I don't think we even hear them. I think it's just shot with the camera pointed at Richard, because again, Abrahamson's not interested in the police procedural. He's not interested in, you know, shooting stuff of detectives trying to find out what happened. You know, he's not really bothered about that. And again, we're left with an ending very much like the other two films that again isn't particularly narrative driven. There's no real sense of closure, because again, Abrahamson, his films are generally about people in situations that are fairly universal. There might be one or two exceptions, but in general it's people living with a decision or an event and how they deal with them moving forward through their life. Because again, we all, while watching these films, would say, oh, I wouldn't do that, or I would step up and do the right thing. But that's not necessarily the case. We've seen it time after time where people don't necessarily do the right thing. And especially it goes back to that idea of, well, what if punishment's not coming? How do we deal with that? Again, another interesting little film about kind of big issues, and again shot in a really spare but beautiful way. Again, the use of landscape and environment is really very well done. Next is my favourite Abrahamson film, and perhaps the one that actually sticks out a bit from his other films as far as subject matter. I've talked about it before, again I did a random review on it, and that's Frank. That's one plain archive edition, and I have a second plain archive edition just because I love the film so much. This was co-written by John Ronson with his experiences with Frank Sidebottom. It's not a biography of Frank Sidebottom, it's just a character with a similar thing of wearing a paper mache hat. It stars Michael Fassbender, who gives a wonderful turn, and Domhnall Gleeson. And again, it's not for everybody, like all Abrahamson films aren't really. It's about the music industry, it's about fame, it's about how social media success is more important to some people than actual talent or actual artistic success. It's about a talentless wannabe musician played by Domhnall Gleeson who happens accidentally to be involved with this band, the Sonophorobs, fronted by Michael Fassbender, who is a paper mache head the whole time. Wonderful support by Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it follows them as they're recording an album, and Domhnall Gleeson is leaking all this stuff to social media, and he wants them to become stars and to become popular, but that's not really what the band's about. There's lots of issues that the film touches on, from mental health to, again, success and fame and what it actually means, as opposed to being talented and actually doing what you want to do. It's really funny. If you're familiar with kind of the Zappa type thing or Captain Beefheart as far as their musical styles, you're probably going to enjoy it. Again, it's not for everyone, but I absolutely love it. It blew me away, and that's what got me into Abrahamson's films. It didn't make my top 150 favourite film list that I did last year, but if I do an updated version this year, I've got a feeling it will be in it, because it's just so good. The soundtrack's great. Again, it's subjective whether you like the music in it or not, or whether you like the film or not, but I just thought it was absolutely wonderful, really funny. It's got the second funniest sex scene behind CB4. It's just a wonderful film about music, creativity, talent, and the people who just want to be famous and don't care who they hurt in the process. They just want to be famous. They just want to be celebrities, which unfortunately that's kind of the world we live in. And then a year later came probably his most successful, his most famous film, Room, which, if I'm being honest, is probably my least favourite of his films. This was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. Brie Larson won the Oscar, I believe, and other awards. Again, this edition's got a commentary. It's really good when you get a director's whole canon. Granted, this is only 6 films, and all the releases of it have commentaries. You really get to know what he's thinking and his thought process. This is a film about a woman and her son who are kept captive. She's been kept captive for 7 years, and her son has just turned 5. And they, spoiler alert, they do get out at some point. They've been held in an 11-foot by 11-foot room for all this time by a bad man. They get out, and it's how they respond to the wide world. Obviously, it's a world that the boy's never seen. The reactions with family members. Really good support by Joan Allen and William H. Macy. And the guy whose name I can never remember from Atom films. It's a good film, but it's not really up my street. I mean, again, I think Mark Kermode gave it 5 stars. One of the best movies of the decade. Not for me, but again, it's subjective. It did do very well as far as awards, and critics really liked it. Again, it's about, even in this small sample size, you can tell Abrahamson's more interested in, effects of events on people, decisions they make, and how that affects them moving forward. I would say the behind the scenes and the commentary are really good. The production design of the 11 by 11 room is really interesting. Again, great support. Again, it's not narrative driven. I mean, there's a mention when they catch the perpetrator of a trial, but again, there's no trial scene. Abrahamson's not interested in that. It was written by the novelist, Emma Donoghue. So you have that overlapping of the person who actually wrote the book, wrote the screenplay as well, which always helps. It's a good film, but for me it's not a great film, but again, you might think it's a great film, and that's perfectly right. But I like how he responded to this film, because obviously lots of critical success. He could have easily went the kind of Hollywood mainstream route after that. He does say that he got lots of offers after the success of Room, because as soon as you get Oscar nominations, as soon as your actors get Oscars in one of your films, obviously your profile changes, you get different offers. But instead of doing that, he made a little film called The Little Stranger, again with Donald Gleeson and Ruth Wilson and Charlotte Rampling. This is a period piece. Again, this release has got a commentary by Abrahamson, which is always good. This kind of comes across as being like a ghost story, a supernatural chiller, but it's not really about that. It's about a doctor. Strangely enough, it's kind of similar to the Donald Gleeson character in Frank. It's kind of a doctor who's come from working class roots that wants to kind of step up into society, and he gets involved with this family who are living in this decrepit, broken down mansion essentially, and his relationship with Ruth Wilson, who plays the daughter, and Charlotte Rampling is the mother. Again, it's kind of set up as, a Del Toro-esque chiller or ghost story, but it's not really about that. Again, it's one of Abrahamson's themes about trying to step up in the world, trying to grow into the person that you're supposed to be, the difference between your image of yourself and who you really are. Gleeson gives a really good performance, even though it's a little bit more reserved than what we sometimes see him doing. Charlotte Rampling and Ruth Wilson are really good. Again, it's shot really beautifully and elegantly. Again, narrative isn't really the driving force in the film. It's perhaps a little overlong, this one, but it's still a very good film and well worth your time. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that's perhaps piqued your interest in Abrahamson's other films, if you're just familiar with Room. Because like I say, for me, Room's probably his least interesting film. It's still good, still enjoyed it, but it's probably my least favourite of those ones. But he is a director to keep an eye on, and I'll certainly be keeping an eye on him. Yes, you could argue, he hasn't made a masterpiece, but there's still lots of very interesting and very good directors in cinema history that never quote unquote made a masterpiece. And Abrahamson is, certainly listening to him and all these commentaries, he's certainly an interesting guy with interesting views on cinema and how to shoot films and how he approaches the subject matter, because he has made 6 different kinds of films, even although already in this small sample size there are themes that go through all of his work. So for me, as a director to keep your eye on. Again, will he continue to do films on the fringe, or will he end up breaking in and doing a Star Wars or Marvel film? Hopefully not. So thanks very much for watching this episode of In the Frame. Again, let me know your comments below and your feelings for Abrahamson, and hopefully you'll join me again for more In the Frame videos in the future. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films saying farewell.